Good day to Encik Hashamuddin. We are from Group 5 and now we will be presenting problem case from topic 5, which is Code of Ethics of Auditors. Our team members are Lee Huiling, hermetic number is 01D821F1009, Nurin Irdina binti Abdul Halim, hermetic number is 01D821F1032, myself Priyadashni Sandran, hermetic number is 01D821F1045, and Nur Farahin binti Ahmad Shakir, hermetic number is 01D821F1046. These are the table of contents.
Problem case 1. As of case 1, we are supposed to identify and explain the ethical and professional issues raised and recommend any actions which should be taken in respect of the matter described by the audit senior. Discussion of case 1. In this case, we are faced with a complex situation involving ethical and professional concerns in the field of auditing. As an audit partner of a firm responsible for auditing a subsidiary company within a group, several critical issues have come to light during the audit process. The first issue and recommendations are: the issue is lack of clarity in overseas contract and unidentified payments. So this ethical issue is the failure to establish a precise date for overseas contract, as well as the finding of unidentifiable payments to individuals related to abroad government offices, point to potentially unethical or even corrupt practices. So the recommendations are: further investigate the nature and purpose of these payments. Next is request clarity from the finance director regarding contracts payments and the involvement of government authorities, and also include all the results and debates in the audit working documents. The next issue is purchase orders not cross-referenced to approved supplier list, which the creation of purchase orders not without proper cross-referencing to an approved supplier list and raises concerns about the accuracy and the legitimacy of this transaction. So the recommended actions are to verify the authenticity of the suppliers and the goods or services provided, evaluate the internal control environment related to the purchase order process, consider the potential impact on financial statement, and report any irregularities to higher management. Next is misclassification of environmental penalties. The ethical issue of this is the finance director's decision to post environmental penalty cost of sale is an unethical attempt to conceal the company's failure to comply with the environmental laws and regulations. So the recommended actions are: we have to look at the sanctions, nature, and the severity, as well as the circumstances behind the misclassification. And also we need to determine the possibility for financial statement misinterpretation because of this misclassification. If required, we need to report this unethical behavior to higher management, including the board of directors. Next, I will pass the presentation to Farahin.
So I will continue with the issue that should be raised and the recommended action that should be taken in respect to the matter described by the auditor senior. The issue is director failure to address repeated environmental violation. So the ethical issue is the director's failure to take the appropriate step to prevent repeated environmental violation is a violation of their ethical responsibility to protect stakeholders' interests while also complying with laws and regulation. So the recommended action is to inform the board of directors and senior management of the non-compliance problem. So suggestion that the company design and implement a plan to address environmental compliance issue as soon as possible and to prevent future violation. If this issue has a major impact on the financial statements, consider stating it in the audit report. So next is prior lack of detection of such behavior. So the ethical issue is given that auditors are intended to spot and report unethical or fraudulent acts, the fact that such behavior has gone undetected in the past raises concern about a potential flaw in the auditing procedure. So the recommended action is to review and evaluate the firm audit procedure efficiency, particularly about spotting fraud or unethical behavior. Consider modifying the audit plan to include additional technique aimed at detecting similar problem in the future. And the last one is identified payment to government-linked individual. So the ethical issue is the discovery of large unidentified payment linked to overseas government department raise concern about potential bribery or corruption. So the recommendation action is the audit team should perform extensive procedure to trace the purpose of this payment, determine their legitimacy, and assess any related risks. If bribery or corruption is suspected, it should be reported to the appropriate authorities and handled in accordance with applicable law and regulation.
Next, Hui and Muri Itina will continue the presentation about the discussion problem case 2. The question given is: in line with SCCA Codes of Ethics and Conduct, clarify and explain the factors that must be considered before the internal audit engagement should be accepted. First of all, introductions. Energetic and Co and Mutiara Co are audit partner. Mutiara Co is currently thinking about creating an internal auditing department and may perhaps contract it out to Energetics and Corporations. A fee schedule that links audit fees to the company's earnings is put out by the finance director. Next, the SCCA Codes of Ethics and Conduct includes integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior.
The first factors to be considered is internal control over financial reporting. It is an important part of an organization's financial integrity and accuracy. It pertains to the nature of the internal audit work. It's about understanding whether the internal audit engagement will involve reviewing and assessing the internal control that an organization has in place to ensure the accuracy and reliability of its financial reporting. It is the process of evaluating financial statement risk and offer reasonable level of assurance that prepares accurate financial statement. It's made up of policies and control process. It should be precise, impatient, and thorough. The components that cover are strategy, risk assessment, entity level control, control selection, testing strategy, assessing result, and governance. The example in the case of Mutiara Corporations, the energetics and corporations, the external audit company is already in charge of reviewing the financial statements to make sure they are accurate and compliant with applicable accounting standard. It is important to ensure that the external audit duties and the internal audit engagement do not substantially overlap. Secondly, the factors to be considered is if management will accept responsibility for implementing appropriate recommendations. It's concerned about the code's professional behavior. The effectiveness of internal audit relies on the organizational willingness to act on audit findings and implement recommendations. If management is not committed to making necessary changes, the audit's impact may be limited and the internal audit engagement might not be effective in improving the company process. The management should acknowledge any weaknesses or issues identified during the audit and commit to making necessary improvements. For example, suppose Energetic and Corporation approves the internal audit engagement for Mutiara Corporations. The audit team finds a serious control deficiency in the company inventory management system while conducting the internal audits. However, the management of Mutiara Corporation appears reluctant to take immediate action to remedy these control deficits. So the goals of internal auditing are enhancing internal controls, reducing risk, enhancing the organizational overall governance and efficiency. These goals can only be achieved if management is prepared to take correction active. When management resists implementing critical recommendations, it may compromise the effectiveness of the internal audit process and raise ethical concern about the integrity and the independence of the audit functions. The third factors to be considered is independence and objectivity. It's important to ensure that the internal audit team can maintain independence and objectivity in conducting the audit. It's also important to ensure that the audit opinions and findings are not influenced by any conflict of interest or undue pressures. The internal auditors must be determined if accepting the engagement will pose any threats to independence and objectivity of the auditors. Any potential threats to independence, such as financial interests or personal relationship, should be assessed. Ensuring independence and objectivity in the internal audit function is indispensable to guarantee that the audit process remains credible, thorough, and aligned with the best interests of the company and its stakeholder. For example, an Energetic and Co must ensure that it can perform the internal audit work independently and objectively. This means that any potential conflicts of interest, such as the engagement partner son being offered a role in Mutiara Co as a sales manager, this role would entitle him to share in Mutiara Co as part of his remuneration package. Therefore, need to be carefully evaluated in order to avoid conflict of interest. If this conflict compromises, the engagement may not be accepted. Next, I will pass the presentation to Nuri Indina.
All right, thank you, Hu Ying. So next, my factors to be considered is scope and expertise. So the first one is the scope and expertise is important to understand what the board of directors expects from the internal audits and whether it aligns with the firm's capabilities and ethical standards. Point number two, the audit team must have the necessary expertise to perform the audit effectively. This component relates with the principle of professional competence and due care. Management must be prepared to accept responsibility for any shortcomings or problems found during the audit and pledge to make the required corrections. Therefore, so for example, for our factors, the audit firm Energetic and Co needs to assess whether they have the expertise and resources to perform both external and internal audit functions effectively. This includes evaluating the skills and qualifications of the audit team for the internal audit role. If the scope and expertise are wrong, then many problems and carelessness when doing that will arise and the engagement may be not accepted. So in next slide, outsourcing considerations is the factors to be considered. The first one, the auditors have a duty to adhere to high standard of behavior like honesty in the course of their work and in their relationships, whether it be personal or with the staff of audit entities. An external audit firm is considering taking on an internal audit engagement for a company. If the internal control will primarily involve reviewing and testing the company's internal control related to financial reporting, this factor becomes a key consideration. The probable timescale for the outsourcing of the internal audit function, such as the timescale may be relevant for planning and logistics, but that is not typically an outsourcing consideration. So next. So this is the example. Energetic and Co must comply with relevant ethical principles and requirements to all services that professional accountants in public practice, such as integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior, and last one, technical standards. If the internal audit function is outsourced to Energetic and Co, they must assess whether this aligns with their capacity and the resources to provide this service effectively. They need to be prepared to meet the expectations and responsibilities of an internal audit functions. Next, the last factor to be considered is client's reputations. An internal auditor should avoid engaging with clients who engage in unethical or illegal activities. The internal auditor must ensure the confidentiality of information of clients obtained during the engagements. Consider whether any confidentiality restrictions may impact the ability to fulfill the engagements. Then, the reputation is very important in this market because of the information asymmetry that exists between clients and auditor. And the high reputation auditor have incentive to deliver a sufficient level of audit quality to avoid fraud or misreporting incidents that harm their reputation. So, for example, Energetic and Co. and Pensyarah Co. As an audit manager at Energetic and Co., the client's reputation is very important, such as when the audit firm does their job, they must ensure that internal audit involvement does not compromise confidential personal information Pensyarah Co. This means Pensyarah Co. as a client and the reputation of Pensyarah Co. must be maintained very well. So, this is our reference for the case 1. So, this is the reference for our case 2. So, that's all from us. Thank you.